In the fight against Donald Trump's tariff threats, one Ontario city mayor is making the case for why critical minerals could be Canada's trump card. He's Paul Lefebvre, the mayor of Greater Sudbury, and he joins us now to discuss how the Nickel City and its partners across the province can help protect Canada's economic sovereignty. It's really nice to have you back, sir.
Thank you so much.
So what are you doing in town?
So I was invited by the Canadian Club to certainly deliver some remarks to talk about critical minerals and to certainly discuss how, certainly as in Canada, Ontario, for Sudbury, and what can we do to make sure that our economic sovereignty, that we ensure our economic sovereignty. At the same time, we make sure that the jobs and the added value of our critical minerals is done here in Canada, certainly Ontario, and certainly as me as Mayor of Sudbury, in Greater Sudbury, and looking at the opportunities and discuss those opportunities with my friends and the rest of the GTA and the rest of Ontario.
Well, critical minerals are in everything from our cell phones to cars. We might not be aware of what's in those products.
That's right.
And Ontario is a province that's rich with critical minerals.
Very much so.
So what are they and how are they used?
Yeah, so, well, they're basically nickel, you have cobalt, lithium, right, and manganese are critical minerals, and there's a number of other critical minerals as copper as well. But certainly when we talk about electric vehicles and batteries, we talk about semiconductors as well, when we're looking at storage of energy, and so those are all, and we look at the defense procurement, military equipment, nickel plays a large role. So that's kind of some of your critical minerals. There is a number of critical minerals that the province of Ontario and the government of Canada has said that they were critical minerals in our country, over 30 some. So now they're basically, as I said, semiconductors, right, in energy storage, or you're in batteries, as well as in AI, and in defense applications. So it's around us everywhere, right? And so it's very important that now that the world is changing, and we are trying to make sure that we keep the opportunities here in our own province and in our own country, and just not trying to extract and send that out around the world, right? And then basically with the threats of our neighbors to the south, of trying to shore up on their own internal economy as much as they can, we need to make sure that we sort of look at the opportunities that we have to make sure that we keep that economic powerhouse that we are when it comes to natural resources, and critical minerals is one of them.
I mean, a year ago, I don't think any of us could have seen what's happening, the threats of annexation, and the province and Canada pivoting to consider how we can take care of ourselves because we're being forced to do that.
Very much so.
You wrote a column in Northern Ontario Business suggesting Sudbury can help fight Trump's trade war.
That's right.
How is your city positioned to do that?
Well, we're a very unique city in the sense that when it comes to critical minerals, we have 9 operating mines right now that extract nickel, cobalt, as well as copper, and a lot of the platinum metals. And so those are critical because in the U.S., we actually send about 60% of our nickel that we actually produce in Sudbury is sent to the U.S. And we actually provide most of the military equipment, nickel that they need in their alloys actually comes from Sudbury. We actually have another 10 mines that are under development in Greater Sudbury. That's very unique. You don't see that in a city. Just to give you a comparative, Sweden, which is a powerhouse in mining, has 10 operating mines. So we have 9 operating mines in Sudbury, plus another 10 that are under development. So as the world needs those critical minerals, and it needs that supply, we've been doing that. Plus, we have 2 smelters, 2 refineries, and a mill. Again, you don't see that type of mining complex anywhere in the world, and the talent we have. We have the best hard rock miners in the world as well. And we do it safely, and we do it responsibly and sustainably. And we also have our Indigenous partners in our area that are supportive, right? So it took a while to get there, but certainly we are trying to make sure that we move forward in the right way, that they're engaged, and they have economic opportunities as well. So there's lots that were very unique in Greater Sudbury, and that's why there's value proposition to make sure that we increase the supply and we do a bit more advanced processing to ensure that we do the advanced manufacturing in Canada and Ontario, and certainly in our area as much as we can. So as we want to keep the jobs in Canada, these are things that certainly as governments, municipally, provincially, federally, we need to be focused on to make sure that we keep that resource here as long as we can before we export it around the world.
Do you have knowledge of plans to build processing facilities in Sudbury?
Well, that's one of the things that we'd like to see. We have 2 smelters and 2 refineries and a mill. But when we look at the electric battery vehicles, and there's been a big investments by the province and by the federal government here in the GTA, and certainly across the Southern Ontario, And we always say, well, the whole supply chain is going to come from Ontario because we're going to get the supply from the north, which is the minerals, but then it needs to be provided into a form called a pre-cathode anode material, PCAMs. And we don't have one of those yet. There's only one in Canada that's being built, and it's near Montreal. What's unique about it is that it's the first one in Canada between GM, POSCO, which is a Korean manufacturer, and Vale. So the nickel that is being provided to Quebec is actually coming mainly from Sudbury. And you need sulfuric acid as well, and that's coming from Sudbury as well, which is great. Right? The fact that they're doing a PCAM plant and a CAM plant in Quebec, that's what the government wanted. But now in Ontario, there's been investments in the lithium plant in Thunder Bay, which is great news, a cobalt plant in Cobalt, Ontario. And now we need to have a nickel sulfate refinery created in Ontario to make sure we take the nickel and create it into that powder that goes into the PCAM. It's very complex, but we have an opportunity in Ontario to create all that supply chain, that independent supply chain when it comes to battery electric vehicles.
What does your city stand to gain?
Jobs, right? And economic. At the end of the day, jobs is one and foremost. But you know what? We've been seeing our minerals being extracted, right, and processed and then shipped out. Before, because our world has changed. Before it was mainly stainless steel, right? The application for nickel was mainly stainless steel, but that world has completely changed in the last decade. So we're seeing an opportunity. So right now we're shipping our nickel out, which is great, but there's more supply in the Sudbury Basin than ever. As much as we've been mining for 100 years, there's at least another 100 years of mining in our area. If that's what all the geologists are saying. So we're just saying that this is a great opportunity for our province, certainly for our community, as well as for our country to have that economic sovereignty, because critical minerals is key. And when you look at the geopolitical situation, right now is China's leading the way by far. But they've been doing this for decades now. They've had their industrial strategy lined up. The U.S. is really late to the game. That's one of the things that the President Trump is trying to say, well, that's why he wants to get Greenland, Ukraine. And now he's threatening us to become the 51st state because he sees that race and they're so far behind. So we're disappointed, obviously, as Canadians, because we're saying, well, we want to be partners. You don't come here and just try to think you're going to be able to invade us. We don't work that way. We are trading partners. We are reliable trading partners. And for us as a country, I think we need to do more to shore up what we have here, create the jobs here and create the economic benefits in our communities, with Indigenous partners as well, and in our province and in our great country.
To fight for our sovereignty.
Exactly.
A part of Ontario that we're hearing a lot about lately in the news is the Ring of Fire.
Yep.
And for those who may not be familiar with it, it's located approximately 500 kilometers northeast of Thunder Bay. So if you're flying from Toronto, a plane to Thunder Bay and another plane, a smaller plane.
It's really far.
It's far, and it covers about 5,000 square kilometers.
Right.
Can you explain to us why this area is so valuable?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of the mineral deposits there that we don't even know really the value of it because it is massive. There's obviously nickel, and there's copper in there, and there's some base metals, as well as chromite. But right now the price of chromite is very low, so there's no real business case to go and extract the chromite, whereas nickel and copper, we believe is a good starting point. So that it was discovered almost 2 decades ago now, and it's taken a time because it's so remote. We need to build a road there, and you're in very challenging environmental situation. A lot of water, a lot of muskeg, so very, very swampy area, so very hard to get to. And plus, to do it properly, you need to engage with the First Nations, right? And there is a lot of competing jurisdictional claims to the area as well. You have Webequie, you have Martin Falls, you have Ubimatong, you have Nishigandiga. That's 4 of the communities. And then there's a number of communities even further than that certainly want to play a role there. So the province has said they want to move it forward, right? And so there's communities there that you know, their situations are very challenging on the social side, so they want to see commitment by everybody to surely help them surmount that. So it's not easy. It's a complex one from where it is and how to extract it, and then how you're going to get the ore out, right? So there's right now Martin Falls, I believe, is doing the design for a road in the area. It's a long road, but that will open up those communities. And they're not used to that, right? They've been very secluded. They've been on their own. So there's a lot of work to be done to assist them and to work with them. And certainly that it's led by them. It has to be led by them, or else then you don't have the social license to go in there. That's very unique about Sudbury. When you talk about a Ring of Fire, and as my Indigenous communities are talking to those Indigenous communities, they're kind of relaying the message of what we learned here. It hasn't always been perfect in Sudbury for Indigenous communities, right? Where we were 50 years ago, where we are today, where we are going in another 50 years, there's about more conversations than we've ever had That's what it has to be on every deposit in our province as well.
So consultation with Indigenous communities is important to you.
100%.
I'm going to talk about the province in just a second, but we are in the middle of a federal election, and federal Conservative leader Paul Lefebvre made an announcement on March 19th in Sudbury and said that within 6 months, if he were to become Prime Minister, he would greenlight all federal permits for the Ring of Fire, and he'll commit $1 billion to build new roads to access it. Sudbury isn't directly in the Ring of Fire.
No.
Why is this issue important to you?
Well, certainly for us, at the end of the day, where is that nickel going to be refined, right? It's smelted. It has to be Sudbury. There is no nickel refinery or smelter that can do that but Sudbury right now. So certainly as that will be extracted, they're going to have to ship that somewhere else. So it's important for us. That being said, we want all deposits because at the end of the day, mining, again, once a community has mining, they don't want to lose it. But once they don't, with communities that don't have mining, sometimes they don't want to have it because the uncertainty, right? They don't know, and
What uncertainty?
Well, because the environmental uncertainties, right? Are we going to get the benefits? Or are they going to leave us with this environmental catastrophe, right? And there's the image sometimes of past mining project is not very, very positive. Even though, as we come back to Sudbury, obviously we have really taken our environment where we were a number of years ago, which our devastated landscape. We planted 10 million trees. We reduced our SO2 emissions by 98%, so we have clean air in our community. Before there was a lot of pollution in the air. And our lakes, we have 330 lakes in Sudbury, and all of which now all have marine life, right? But that wasn't always the case. So we've learned a lot. Now we can share a lot with the world, and certainly I share a lot with Northern Ontario as well. So that's why that license that I like to call about being able to move these projects forward, they have to be done in the right way. So we send a benefit, but certainly it has to be done in the right way.
I imagine too, like once you do get all of those approvals in place, that a mine isn't just built overnight.
Oh, no.
I read it's like 17. It can take to 17 years.
Well, that's with the permitting, right? The permitting, and then certainly to build a mine, you're looking at a number of years as well, because by the time they do they determine where they want to do what we call the shaft, right, in the middle of the ore body or beside the ore body, so that they can get to it. It's very complex, a lot of expertise, and that it's interesting because Sudbury, the people from Sudbury, and a lot of expertise comes from Sudbury because we export that around the world. They live in Sudbury because they've learned in Sudbury, but now we export that around the world.
So how can Sudbury benefit from the development of the Ring of Fire?
Well, like I said, right, it's basically the nickel would come to Sudbury and be processed there. And now when we talk about that advanced processing and that Paikin plant I talked to you about, that could be one of the sources of it as well. It's interesting because I think some of my friends in the northwest of the province will say, well, how can you talk about that? Because that's our area. Well, my response to that is this. I don't think you want a smelter in your backyard with the tailings and the slag that comes with that. We're used to that. That's what we do in Sudbury, right? We know how to deal with it. We have confidence in the people that minimize the exposure to the slag and the tailings in our area. We have hundreds of thousands of tons of it. And that's why we're saying we can do more because of the knowledge that we've created, because of the environment that we've created, and that the fact that we know how to do this. And that's very unique around the world.
Well, with that being said, this isn't a new conversation. Parties on both sides and on both levels haven't been able to get this done for a very long time. Why now?
Well, I think there's always been talk about it, right? But it's a challenge. But I think now we need more of those critical minerals than ever. We need to, as we're competing around the world, and people have a choice to make, right, as to where they're going to source their critical minerals. Where we have the endowments here in Ontario and certainly in Canada as well. And I would say that if it's not us, it's China. If it's not China, Russia has some as well. So you have countries like Canada and Australia that have these endowments, and certainly versus China and Russia. So I think if we want to have that independence, if we want to make sure that we're not beholden to other countries, when it comes to our manufacturing sector, we need to make sure that we develop as much as we can that we have in our own country.
You talked about how we need to consult Indigenous communities in this process. During Premier Doug Ford's campaign trail, he said consulting with Indigenous communities hundreds of kilometers away is a, quote, ridiculous ask. What types of conversations are you having with Indigenous communities around Greater Sudbury?
Oh, I have them all the time. Actually, it was interesting. We just had the big mining conference here in Toronto a few weeks ago, and actually we were on a panel. Myself, my two Indigenous chiefs, Chief Rock from Guanapate and Chief Nuchtai from Tikmashing, with Valley. talking about certainly how we're doing in Sudbury. It's not perfect. It's not. And where we were 50 years ago was not perfect at all. Like, it was just big challenges. But it's about having conversations, sitting down together, making sure that there's opportunities, because this needs to benefit everybody, just not the mining company. It needs to benefit the community as well, and the First Nations as well. That's the approach that we've taken. That's why we're very unique. Is we're very successful. And I'm not saying that in the future there won't be challenges again, but that's why these conversations, sitting down together, ensuring that we're at the table together, is key to make sure that. You know what? People have confidence in the project and in the process that we're following.
Have you spoken with federal government and the province on easing regulations around mining?
Yeah, we always talk about that. It's more, I think right now, it's more having one process instead of 2 or 3 processes. Right now, there's a review there's an environmental review by the province and environmental review by the feds as well. Saying, is there a way that government can work together to have one review instead of 2? Because at the end of the day, we need to get supply in our country of our critical minerals. We need to process it as fast as we can in our country as well, and then we need to develop the manufacturing capacity. But if we're not getting the processing, the permitting process completed quickly, that can take decades. So is there a way to streamline that, have confidence in the process, but make it quicker and more resilient?
Do you worry, because we were talking about how fast the news is moving from the U.S., but do you worry in this moment when we are trying to figure out how to look inward and to take care of ourselves, that maybe by easing certain regulations it might cause problems down the road? Well,
that's always a concern, but I think we're not saying stop doing the review, right? We're saying let's do one review instead of 2 reviews, right? And I think it comes up to the same to the same level. But at the same time, we have to have the confidence in the system. And I think in Canada, we have one of the best, processes, and certainly the reviews that we do, we have the best confidence in the world because of where we are a world-class mining country. But things are so slow, and we need to do it quicker. But we need to make sure that we have confidence in the way that we do it as well.
In our last minute, as mayor of one of Ontario's largest cities, what do you want from both levels of government? Well,
certainly to take, when we look at critical minerals, and Sudbury is at the forefront of that. Let's look at opportunities to develop more of that supply and that processing, so that we can help Canada manufacture more in Canada. Critical minerals are at the forefront of that. They're actually one of the bedrocks of that type of economy. And we want to make sure that we're at the table to have those conversations.
Thank you so much for making the time to speak with us. I really appreciate it. And safe travels home.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.